if you do the wrong way with the wrong intentions, I say quiet hiring is not going to work. And when I reflect back, I felt like, you know what, that was a wage theft. Why do you need to come back, right? Micromanagers are like, I need to literally watch. You got to understand the environment and see if there's something you can do, self-reflect. So by 90 days, I figured it out. The reality was completely different. If you Google whitening resume, a lot of people are concerned about it. If you want extra from me, what's in for me? I'm going to go somewhere that I am celebrated. Let's do this. Hello. My name is Sweta Regmi. I'm joining you live from Canada. I am a certified career and resume strategist. I am also a founder and CEO of Teach and Do. Now let's go back. Why am I doing this session for free for 5 days? I want to create the community of immigrants. Personally, you've seen it all. Yesterday, I put the picture out there. How did I start in Canada? Coming from the bridge jobs, survival jobs. Now, there's nothing wrong with it at all. But then I did not know, where do I want to land in long term? So the clarity, when it came to career clarity, was something that I was really struggling with. And there's nobody who can hold my hand and say, I think you're better at this one. Let's take a look at it. And I wish there are people, coaches who are specializing for immigrant community. And I know there are free services and the program out there, a lot of program out there right now that's actually doing that mentoring. But what's happening in those programs as well right now is a lot of people are getting misinformation, or it's not customized either. I've had a couple of clients who worked with me because the program, the free program and bridging program did not work with them. Go through one of the clients who was featured in CBC as well as a newcomer, and she was venting it out. So she is, listen to her a live show as well. She was invited on my YouTube channel as well. And she talks about how the free program does not always work for everybody. I need to call that out. I think just because it's free, like today, right? These sessions that I'm going to go through you today for 5 days in a row, right? It's a free resources for you to take it. Now, it might not work with all of you. And this is where the customizing career strategy, job search strategy comes into the place, right? You can Google the informations and you can go ahead and execute it, but you would not know what are you doing differently. How do you need to stand out? It might be completely different strategy for you, right? And that's what we talked about yesterday. 7 C's of career clarity. Not everybody needs that 7 C's of career clarity. I had a client named Vishnu who came in live as well, who hired a resume writer and who hired LinkedIn profile writer. He was a newcomer in Canada. He worked for a temp job for a bit and he struggled, and he was in the project and IT, right? Hybrid role. So he gave up on career consulting. So when he booked an appointment, I called him and we went through it, and he said, I don't believe in coaching anymore because it's not been working out for me. And I said, how did you do that? And he said, I hired somebody else to write for me, right? And that's a problem right there. When you don't know what you want, then what's going to happen is somebody else writes the thing for you. How are you going to articulate that on the piece of paper? How are you going to transition from the piece of paper to the interview? And that was really challenging for Vishnu. And when we worked together, now guess what he's working at? Like, he got the offers on Accenture, that's a well-known company, right? He didn't even think about it. He got it. It was all him being clear on what he wants and branding and writing his resume by himself, not hiring somebody else when you're not clear on what you want, right? There's amazing resume writer, don't get me wrong, right? They know how do you stand out. But at the end of the day, it's you. You're going to have to go on an interview. They can't go for an interview. They cannot do the networking on your behalf. And this is where the challenging thing's going to happen, where you're going to think about, well, I have an amazing resume. Somebody else wrote it for me. I should be getting hired. That's not the thing. If you're not clear on the clarity, the 7 circle, and I'm going to share that slide as well, what we talked about yesterday. Competencies. This is where a lot of people struggle, right? We went through that yesterday. What industry, what title, as a matter of fact, the title as well, what happens is people, they know what they want, but sometimes they don't know, especially the immigrants. And I went through that example of it too yesterday. Just because you've done 4 different things back home, or even here in Canada, multiple hats, you might not be the right fit for the employer. So you really have to niche it down. Do you remember I used this word yesterday? Niche it down, right? What does that mean to you? Type it in the comments. So here's the thing, competencies we're talking about, and we talked about content as well, right? If you are into the content writing field, marketing field, where you have to showcase your digital footprint, how are you going to write the content? And when it comes to content, we're not only going to talk about your personal branding on social media, we're talking about the content on the resume itself. The way you write your resume, you cannot represent your voice in there without them seeing you. And that's really important. No matter how many people are going to say, well, resume is going to be like, outdated model, but how are employers going to be compliant? If they do not have a standard process to hire you, resume is the one, right? And they go through the application stage, and they also go through the interview stage as well. So when you don't have that paper, when you're not there to represent yourself, your resume should be doing that work for you. And this is coming up in last session later on in day 5, I believe, or check your workbook. If you have not had your workbook, there's a link down there. What are we going to talk about today? So my resume and interview techniques is going to be last sessions. Make sure you attend this as well. I have an example for you. How are you going to be calibrated and everything? So we're going to go more detail on that, right? So we talked about the strategy yesterday about the 7 C's. And I'm going to go through here what we talked about yesterday, right? When we talked about this, we talked about everything here, but depends on where you have a gap. Not everybody has a gap everywhere else, right? Some people might start from counseling. Some people might know what they want, but they're not getting ahead because that could be their confidence, content. They're not able to articulate it, and they probably do not have a connections, right? They don't have a networking skill. They're just randomly reaching out to the people without the strategy. And there's like a lot of competition as well in the market. So what happens here on that circle, you have to now do your homework. And we're going to talk about that too. How do you go back and clarify those clarities? So that way, before you even start writing the resume, you need to be very clear on that aspect. What is your why, right? Tell me if you know your why. Why should employer hire you? Why should they pick up the call and say, I really want that person right there, right? The why needs to be so clear. Not the why with I'm such a detail-oriented person, result-oriented person, I am a hardworking person. It doesn't matter to the company. Those are not measurable. Those are only going to be measurable when you literally sit down and work with the team, stakeholders. And that's why there's a probation period for you. And you can get the job by fluffing the resume or being very good at an interview. At the end of the day, you are the one who's going to have to execute that task. How are you going to be forever employable, right? Isn't that what you need at the end of the day? That you don't get fired because you're incompetent, because you don't know how to showcase that skills, right? So for you to do that, you need to understand a couple of things before you even start job searching. I say soul searching. That happened to me. I was laid off and I went away for soul searching to figure out, okay, now I have a time to go back and reflect it. What am I really good at? My SWOT. Type it in there, SWOT. And I always tell people, when it comes to identifying yourself, you gotta go and reevaluate yourself with the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and a threat. Strength and weaknesses is controllable. You can control it. Sometimes opportunities and threat are external factor and you might not be able to, control it, but you gotta be self-aware. So what's going to happen when you're not even aware of your SWOT? Because that's going to come in an interview. Questions like, tell me about yourself. You don't know what to talk about. What are your strengths? Because strength needs to be there. Questions like, tell me about your weaknesses. You have no idea. How do you articulate and why you need to be very aware of what's your weaknesses depending on the job title, right? And people mess it up. People just go with the blatant answer like hiring managers know. I would know when I'm interviewing people, like if it's been scripted or you prepped it based on the customizations of the job that you're applying for. So hiring managers are not fooled. They've done this interviews many times. I can pick it right there. Oh, it's scripted. Okay. And I would be the one, I would find out, can you give me one more example? Then what are you going to do about it? So the framework is all about always being ready and using the specific framework to talk about yourself. So today we're going to go through what's your why, right? What's your what? What's your how are you going to do it and where are you going to do it? And then when you look at the workbook, there's an assignment as well. And when are you going to do it? And also, who do you need to be surrounded by, right? So then the assignment is you have to write down the model. This is the assignment. And I said yesterday, you can attend any sessions in the world. It could be the world's fantastic free sessions. It's time for you to now own this and go and execute it. If you don't execute it, you're going to forget it. My theory is if you don't write it, it's not going to be in your mindset at all because you have to write it. And I'll tell you one example that just literally happened to me. I use this strategy. Every January, there's a vision board. I put it in there, vision board, right? And I always put my plan together. Okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? This launch was planned. And I said, I'm going to launch this around this time and we're going to make that happen, right? If I didn't write it, I would not be sitting in my board and thinking, oh my God, I got to launch it, right? And same thing happened to me as well. I printed out where I want to be invited for media interviews. I printed out the share. And I put it out there every day. I'm thinking, okay, well, I want to be there. And today it happened that my strategy worked because I wrote it down constantly. I'm thinking about it. Okay, how do I do it? How do I do it? Who, when? It really is important. How do you build a connection is really important. It's not at the time when you don't have anything. It's at the time when you have everything. Right? So I built my network and I always tell people, build your network when you have everything. So it's not desperate. And don't think about expecting anything back at all. This is what you do. Genuinely appreciate people's work, one day at a time. If you like somebody's work, what's holding you back to just not say it out loud? I always have that. If you want to give the compliment, give it in front of entire world. That's a leadership lesson. All right. When you want to give a feedback and coaching that you don't agree with, always privately. And that's the strategy you got to go by. So you build the connections by partnering with the right people. So here, why? I'm going to share the example of what kind of whys are we talking about. So I'm going to give you an example of data analyst today. Okay, and I'm going to share the slides as well. And I'm going to share why the data is really important. You can talk about I'm hardworking and results-oriented and whatever you want, right? But at the end of the day, you got to put the data because data do not lie. That's called evidence. So credibility, remember that? We went through that yesterday. So in order for you to understand the role that you are diving in there, you want to get promoted, you just landed in Canada, let's say, right? First of all, is to understand what's your why. You did something back home, let's say, that might not be the same KPIs, which is key performance indicator that would be measured in Canada in the same company. It depends on the company to the company. So when you don't understand how are you measured, how is your success measured, what are the tools that companies are using, this is where a lot of people fail. They just provide, their whys are not clear, and they just provide the irrelevant information. First time when I jump in the call with the clients who are newcomer in Canada and I can sense it. And the first question sometime would be like, tell me about yourself. And there's nothing I can hear that this is what they're targeting and why they're targeting, right? And this is where the first impression matters. This tell me about yourself and what's your why needs to be super clear, right? That should have industry title and the evidence that supports what's your why they need to hire you. This needs to be part of the customization strategy. Every time you talk to a recruiter, hiring manager, networking, any event, there's no one size fits all. I wish I could tell you the slides that I can share you. I wish I share the same thing to every client. It has to be customized. And this is where the scripted samples, scripted interview thing does not work, because you're scripting it. And how are you standing it out? Right. And this is the program that I have exclusively. I'm offering that, and I'm opening for immigrant community, because I see that there's a need. You are picking up a lot of templated advice, right? And you're not standing out. And that's why you don't want to blend it in. So I invite you to go and put your name on the wait list if you're interested in working with me. And you feel like this session was just a generic for you, you want more, you want customized strategy. We go through the whole bunch of customized strategy, the marketing plan, career strategy for yourself, interview prep for the roles that you're applying for, right? So everything in the resume that you're actually literally targeting it for, right? So we go through the customizations approach on it. And there's a lot of templates that you can customize it. It's already built in for you as well. You enroll and have a wait list. We have a very limited spot, and I'm literally opening this for first time for immigrant community, because they do need this kind of community and making sure that their job search needs are customized. So why should be something that should be literally including the data points and everything. So I'm giving you the high level of data thing, but that doesn't mean that this is the only way. They're like customized way that we teach in our class, which is something that you have to customize it. So if you look at this, and look at this, right? The difference here is, can you tell me the difference? What is this industry and what is this industry for? So type it in the chat. The industry here is a little bit different than what you're targeting, right? And you're going to have to use the industry lingo. That's about it. Just because you use certain lingo on the company, the jargon, that doesn't mean that the company that you're going by, you're going to be using the same lingo in there. So you might confuse them. Right? So the other example is, now here's the client that I've dealt with in the data analyst field. So he had co-op under his experience and a little bit of experience in the data field. So what we worked through together was, okay, how are you going to go? Now the how parts comes in the handy place, right? So how are you going to do this? Tell people that you are the subject matter expert, right? So what we worked through was, okay, how about there's a DEI approach? It's literally everyone is talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion right there, right? And we said, okay, how about you go and research about how many companies are employing these kind of talents? And he built the sheet right there from the scratch. It was his first project. And he got it. He also tagged the company, right, when you look at it. So here, he's just literally telling people, listen, I can do this. If you were to hire me, I'm going to do this for you. Right? He's showcasing his talent. And remember yesterday I was talking about the content matters and the digital portfolio matters as well for certain industry. Just because you're a data analyst, that doesn't mean that you have to sit there and not make a project, make your own project. So he started posting on LinkedIn, he got the attention, he got GitHub, he got the external link, and he totally nailed it. Even his resume was data thing, right? So he was communicating with people, look, what can I do? I can literally work on any data, right? So we talked about it and we said, okay, how about you target the colleges, university as well, right? And he started writing more, the post and targeting them too. So recently he got the role for a company, and that actually trained him as well. Now he's going to be a professor in the college. It is possible, immigrant, and he was an introvert. He had challenges with the language barrier. He got multiple interviews, right? He got hired. He also got interviews and rounds of interviews with government, right? Do you know how hard is it as an immigrant, as a newcomer who's an introvert, who has a language barrier sometime? And I'm super proud of him, right? So it is possible when you actually go through that 7 C's of career clarity. And then when you know, how do you go about doing it? The other process is where do you do it matters too. You got to do it where the employers are hanging out. They saw his project. Everyone came in. His professor came in from the previous batches, and they congratulated him and everything. And I'm not taking credit for it because I only showed him a direction, what's possible. And he went ahead, upgraded it, and literally blown away people like that, right? So, and they saw the work already. They knew that they needed him on the team, and he became a professor, right? And that's crazy if you think about it. But it's possible when you actually know how to use strategize job search strategy. If you're doing exactly the same thing, which is applying online and talking to the people and doing it, you're not going to be one who's going to be selected. You can do that. The process would be long, but do you want the result faster and you feel good about your work? Right? Just like, the social media strategy is great, but that doesn't mean that it works for everybody either. You've got to strategize it. The next one is when do you do it matters too, right? How often do you do it? How often do you do the networking? How often you show up on the other people's feed, right? You got to plan that well enough. Just don't write the comments and people just like, good job. But how do you do it? When do you do it matters as well. Because you have to recognize that people are not going to support you when you just keep on going out there and building the network when you're desperate. They can smell it. All of us can smell it. The other thing is, who is the best part, right? Who is it who's going to sponsor you? I'm not talking about sponsoring you for visa. I'm talking about who is the one who's going to be advocate for you. There's a mentor, there's a sponsor, right? People who are going to mentor is someone who's actually going to showcase you with their knowledge. Okay, I've been a data analyst in the past. This is how you can do it. And it's a short-term relationship with the mentor, right? You are the one who's driving that factor, right? As a mentee. There's a sponsor who's seen your work and who's going to do anything to get you the seat in the table. Are you surrounded by those people? If you're not, then you got to go out there and look for people like that. And I have a client, right? Like now I have Fiaz, I can already see it backstage. I'm going to bring him. He's a hiring manager, guys. He got laid off a couple of times. And why am I bringing him today? A hiring manager could want immigrants, and that's why I brought him today. It's not only for immigrant and newcomer, it's for everybody. If something breaks down at home, who do we call? We call somebody. But when the job search is broken, when you're feeling it, you got to contact somebody, right? You got to hire somebody to fix that for you. At least they can literally find out where's the gap there. I have Samita on the slide, if you can see it. She was featured in CBC as well. She was the one who took the free services bridging program. And she writes about it like it didn't help her. It didn't help her because she had a special niche, right? She said 9-to-5 bridging program didn't do anything for me. I was just sitting down. I didn't learn anything. And some newcomers, they might feel like they didn't learn anything. The process is broken, but it's how you go out there and select the right course. I'm not saying all the free programs are bad, right? But you gotta, just because it's free, that doesn't mean that you have to waste your time either. Right. And she got featured in CBC. She had an option to pick and choose the job offers as a newcomer, and she almost gave up. I remember those days. And she started writing the content. She's a content strategist, right? Her contents were trending. And these are the kind of thing that you have to stand out, not only apply for the job posting, but create your own project. And when people hired her, they're like, we saw how you write, right? And it might not be for everybody. Rishi yesterday did not write anything. Today's guest, like, I have Ray a little bit later on as well. He didn't write anything. His LinkedIn profile is dead pretty much, right? There's a different strategy for everybody that we work through in our program. So I'm going to bring Fiaz a little bit shortly here. Have him come to my show. Fiaz, welcome to my show.
Hey, thanks.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Enjoying the weather when it's not raining.
Perfect. You know what? I'm so excited that you are here. Someone who took my program, one size does not fit all. Tell me, why did you decide to invest in yourself, even though you're a hiring manager?
Yeah, no, perfect. Well, in the past, I've taken the group seminars, and you do pick up one or two things, and it's not bad. But I found that I needed to personalize my portfolio, get it out there specifically for me. So I found working with you is great because you gave me specific tips, not the general comments. And Sweta, you pushed me to do some things I was uncomfortable with doing.
Like
And
what? Like, okay, you keep on saying that. You have to tell people, what did I make you do?
well, you give us, or you gave me, and I'm sure you do with all your clients. You give them good points, but it's up to us to do the work. Now, I thought my resume was pretty good. and I thought my profile was pretty good, but you saw little gaps in it for what I was looking for. So you pushed and you followed up with, did you do the homework? Did you get it right? And then you reviewed it. But again, you didn't do the work for me. You pushed me to do it.
So like, I'm a hiring manager. I know it all. How did that make you feel working with the career strategist like
Yeah,
me?
no, it was good. It was, you know what, when it's a little bit of uncomfortableness at the start, but when you finish, you're proud of what you did, because now you read it both as an individual and as a hiring manager of things that I would have keyed on in the first place. But because it was your own content, sometimes you pass over it so quickly, you just assume it's there, and it
So
was
we'll have
missing.
So thanks for sharing that, right? Because you feel that you're a hiring manager, you feel like I've hired so many people, I've interviewed so many people. There's nothing wrong with my resume. There's nothing like, I don't need any help in an interview. But after going through that one size fits all career strategy, what did you find out about yourself that you were not aware of it, self-aware of it before?
Well, I think, talking about yourself and trying to promote yourself, as much as I knew some keywords to say, yeah, like I said, it pushes you to be a little bit uncomfortable when you're on the other side of the hiring process, because now you're the one, you got to sell yourself, and these are people that don't know you, don't know your career, so you have whatever a few minutes to get it across and hit the key points. So in talking to you, what was really nice is the personal one-on-one. You might talk to a few people, your peers, afterwards in the class, but you don't get the direct approach of what you need to do for yourself. And that's what I really appreciated with your program that we went through.
That is amazing. So now the last question that I want to ask you is, what do you tell those people who are still debating on if the career investment strategy is right for them? People who are still debating, is this the right program for me?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because yeah, I picked up on the last bit of what you were talking about. Was a lot of free content out there, and I agree with you. There's good little bullets on there, but it's generalized, and so working with a consultant like yourself, you get a little specific, and you ask the questions of what are you looking for, and you make sure those keywords or key content or key things that you're doing on LinkedIn or posting relates to what you're trying to do. And sometimes with the general content, or actually many times with the general content, you don't get that. You get the stereotypical approach, which doesn't fit everybody. And I found right now we're in a very competitive market. The market's changing quite a bit right now. So it pays dividends to have you, somebody like yourself, talk specifically to the person and find out what they want to do and tailor their content to promote what they want to achieve.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it did. Especially like, this immigrant community. I'm launching the program for immigrant community in Canada. This is the first program ever. I'm launching it as a group. And I felt like, you know what, let me find somebody who it was a hiring manager and he didn't see this as a weakness. He saw this as an investment, because people, especially immigrant like us, there was nobody who told us in the past, you got to invest in yourself. Investing in yourself is fine. You actually need it. And I feel like I was there too. I wish I had a coaches like that who actually gave me that mentorship. I didn't mind paying for
Yeah.
it too. And I feel that I probably would have been somewhere else right now, maybe move faster. My process of moving faster would have happened if I had the right people at the right time. So as a leader who's lead the team, right, you know how the leadership looks like. You coach and you promote people as well, right?
True.
Do you feel there's a need of investing in career strategies outside of like, the workplace as well? Do you feel there's a need and it's an investment?
Yes, because I find, anyways, in my career path, gone are the traditional jobs that existed many decades ago, where you get a job like in an IBM type company, and you end up staying there for 30 years. So apart from somebody might want to change careers, your job is not guaranteed. So you can be in that role, and if you don't do anything to keep yourself, active and promote yourself, you can find yourself out of a job by, um, no fault of yours. Maybe the company is downsizing or it's closing its doors, which happened to me a couple of times actually.
Yeah.
Right?
How many
And
times? So from GE to like someone somewhere else, like how many
yeah,
times
G
that
and
happened?
Campbell's both closed down, and then Eden's was downsized considerably.
And you had
So
an outplacement. You already got the taste of how the outplacements are serving the layoff survivor. And
you get laid off, you get your severance, you get the outplacement package. And I asked them if I could take whatever money that they had for the outplacement and get my own. Because when I was doing some research, I'd already gone through the outplacement. I knew the type of thing I was going for, but I wanted something more specific, more tailored to me. And it's what I really appreciate working with you is you took a personal interest in the person or myself, right? You didn't just hand me some content and said, go away. You stuck it, you challenged me to do a few things. Like I said, that were a little uncomfortable, updated my LinkedIn profile, and all those specific things worked for me.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it. And I have Ray on the other line now joining in, and he has beautiful, inspiring stories too. And here's the props for Fiaz being laid off and choosing, no, I got this and I'm going to hire the personal people. As a hiring manager, I know it all, but I need more, right? So thank you so much for inspiring.
Thanks for that.
Take care, Fiaz.
Okay.
Bye. All right, so that was Fiaz, who was laid off a couple of times. He's done it all. He was a hiring manager, and he said, I'm going to invest in myself in a career strategy program. So this is not a weakness. This is an investment. I have another guest coming up soon as well. Hear his story, you would be literally, really? That's even possible? Just looking at him, like going through his journey, I've been helping him through the career program all the time, but there was one incident that helped him. I think I need to do more than this right now. So I'm going to bring back Ray. All right. He's a CPA as well. Ray, are you ready? Ray, welcome to my program. So where are you joining us from and what's your title?
Hey, I'm joining from Toronto. My title is CPA. I work in the industry.
All right, great. So it's light. I can't see your face, but again, that's great. So why did you decide to come in? Like, what happened that you decided to literally come in and sign up for the career strategy program?
It was really hard to find a job, first of all. I wanted a desk job, office job, but all the jobs I got was, as a dishwasher or back of the restaurants, right? Those physical laborers job. But I had already attended the universities in Canada. I had already fulfilled my program, but it was still hard to find a proper job that utilized my skill set. So I started my career as an office worker, as a temporary worker with all the dead ends. For example, it was more towards customer service, even though I had my diploma in accounting. So 4 years ago, I got in an accident, and I was on the verge of depression because I lacked self-esteem even more. For example, I was still a temporary worker, without permanent pay. I was concerned about my career prosperity. I was concerned about my need to, meet the financial needs. So I was worried about my future and career prospect, right? So when the accident happened in the rehabilitation center, I started to think what my career would look like in the future, and I had no idea what it would look like. Recommended one of your videos to me, and I was looking at it, and then I liked how you yourself had a struggling story coming here in Canada and how you put yourself forward, right? So anyway, after watching your video, and then I enrolled in your One Size Doesn't Fit All program. And when I joined that program, it didn't just help me create a resume, it also helped me build confidence and find a remote work with 40% increase in my pay compared to contractual job. Remote job was very important to me. So Sweta really helped me out finding a remote job, because with the remote job, I could focus on my strength building after the accident, as well as the job, and I had that work-life balance sorted out. So among other things is, it also saved me commuting time, travel costs, and all those kinds of stuff, right? But it's not just about building resume, it's also about the techniques he taught me during for the resume and interviews. For example, the car technique, right? That's a technique that I'd never heard of in the university or college, right? I use that technique to find a proper job. I use that technique for interview, and I still use car technique, in my workplace to send emails, to communicate with others, right? So it especially helps the car technique, especially I really like that technique, is it helps to communicate complex situations and resolve the issues as the issues are laid out there, and I have the analyzation of the different issues. I have the recommendations for each issues, and then I can sort of like conclude and recommend what solution to use that will impact the financial decision of the company, right? So I still use that technique. So these techniques were not taught in my schools, as I mentioned. These techniques were, taught by Sweta, which was really helpful in building my career portfolio, and I'm using to this day. And I've gotten like 2 or 3 promotions already since then,
Yeah.
right? So
Car technique to the rescue, right? And I understand that you use that technique for CPA as well, right?
I do, and which really helped me in my CPA program as well, because I already knew the technique, and CPA taught that as well in the program. So it helped me in the CPA case studies. It helped me in the workplace, and then yeah, that's my story so far with Sweta.
Thank you so much for coming in. And I know you're busy and you took your lunch period to just come in here and share your stories, because I want people to know that what's possible by looking at you, because you were at that journey where life happened to you, and you were bedridden. Pretty much, you were in the rehab for months, and you went on STD, which is short-term leave. That's when something knocked in and said, "I think I need to make an investment because I want to go somewhere which is remote role." And you targeted, we worked together, and you got what you wanted with the 40% increase. And recently, you got promotions at the job as well, and you got the CPA as well. Isn't that fantastic? I'm super proud of you coming here as an immigrant and then going through that survival jobs and getting what you wanted. How does that feel to live the Canadian dream right now as an immigrant?
It feels really awesome, but it's a long-lasting, um, long-lasting, knowledge to have that helps out in the career prosperity. So
Thank you so much. And you know what? Congratulations on getting the $1 million home. I heard that you guys just bought the home as well. So congratulations. I can't wait to see you grow in your career. Thank you so much, Ray, for coming in and sharing your inspiring stories.
and yeah, thank you, Sweta, for helping us out, helping the immigrants out. So hopefully other immigrants that is seeking for your help, they will get to get to get exposure to the various techniques that's not taught outside, and they can progress further and live that Canadian dream that I'm living.
Thanks, Ray, for coming in. You take care.
Thank you.
All right. So how does that feel to hear stories of someone who went on with the accident, and he said, "I'm not going to sit here in my bed while I'm being on STD, which is a short-term leave. I am going to go there and invest in my career and see what's out there." And that's what he did. And today he is a CPA, and he's gotten promoted as well, and he got the $1 million home as well. Literally, those kind of stories just makes me really happy that there's a Canadian dream. It's possible by looking at him. What is possible? So when you actually go onto the resume, when we give you the tools of matching the score, which is kind of like mirroring the resume. So what you need to do to get that to get that buy-in from the recruiter. And there are always myths out there. So many myths out there saying that ATS rejects it. And there's a strategy we teach in our program as well. And this is an example. Like Madhu was the one, look at his LinkedIn profile. He's on my LinkedIn Live as well, the YouTube Live as well, if you want to hear his story. He went from here to here using the same strategy that we teach in the career strategy program. He was an immigrant as well. Right. So this is possible. This is a result. I have Zaid, who's going to be coming in as a guest speaker on Saturday Q&A sections. you got to meet this guy. So he came from here. He was struggling. He was mechanical engineer back home, and he got the project course done. He paid more than 30,000, and he was stuck in here, right here, where he was not doing anything that he should be doing. Let's just put it out there. That's when he reached out to me, and then we worked together, and he got interviewed in Tesla. Tesla didn't hire him later on because they didn't want to train him. They wanted someone who's already in the field. So he decided, okay, I'm going to apply somewhere else. And he literally got hired in Honda. And then the strategy went along here. He keeps on using the same strategy. Recently, he got promoted here as well. Look at job shoppers. People might see them as a job hoppers, but I create job shoppers for the same program. All right. So you can take a look at it. Over here, the person from back home right there, this is the other profile, went in and now work with this, top company, BA, business analyst. She actually pivoted from the previous role. And it's possible with the same framework. She went to the free bridging program as well, and she struggled. When she came to me, she was beaten up, and she was like, you know what, this is the last stage. I'm going to give it a try. And now that's where she is. She bought the home too recently. I'm super proud of her. Canadian dream. Now, newcomers getting a lot of jobs in Canada without actually, literally hiring resume writer. She hired resume writer. She was from Dubai. She hired resume writer, someone who wrote the resume for her. She didn't get a single offer. So I taught her how to write the resume, interview and everything, the program, and she is now working the top bank, got promoted as well. Vishnu was the guy I was talking about. So he's a guy now in BMO leadership role. Remember, he started from the individual contributor. He's there. He's promoted already Accenture. Now he's at BMO as well. So these things are possible. So we're going to go through hiring bias. Next time, what kind of hiring bias? Today, we talked about what do you need. We revisited the 7 C's of clarity, and you might not be clear on one section. You don't have to do it all. I always tell my clients, small step at a time. If you want to bite biggest pie, you got to start somewhere small first in order to go and see if it's going to work, right? And this is what we talk about it in our program. So first, finding out where's the gap and fixing it right there. That's what we're going to go through. So what's going to happen now is today, you're going to have to go back, look at the workbook that was provided when you registered, go back and write down what's your why statement. Include the data, include the industry jargon there, include the industry wording that you're targeting, right? Title, your industry, how have you saved, reduce the cost, something like that. Just why. And then how are you going to do it? Where are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? You can do whenever you want to, but the results not going to be there right there for you. Sometimes the results are going to be long-term results, right? The data analyst guy who was working in a small company, he's now a professor in the college. You see what I'm saying? Within 1 year of writing that post that I share with you. It is possible. It's not going to be instant. So I don't think anyone can guarantee you saying that you'd be landing role in 90 days, 60 days, because we can't tell. So that's what I tell people when they ask me, like, what's your success rate? And I tell them, you know what? I can say success rate is like 100%. You can land the role in 20 days, which has happened with my client. But I'm not going to sit here and say, if you work in this program, you're going to land the role in 60 days, guaranteed. Because again, we're talking about SWOT, right? There's opportunity and threat, which is the external factor, and you cannot control that. You can only control what you can do. Your whys, be clear on what you want, marketing materials, how are you going to do it? That's you. No one can force you how to do it, but you have to do it. When are you going to do it? Commit to it, right? If you don't want to commit to it, it's not going to happen. Dream, it's going to sit in the dream. That's it. You have to execute it. Today, you have to write it down. All those why, when, where are you going to do it, right? Some employers, they hang out on Twitter only. So you got to find out where do they hang out. You got to hang out where your kind of people are hanging out. People who are looking for talents like you, right? Sometimes LinkedIn might not be the strategy all the time. It might be somewhere else, right? For people in the IT sector, GitHub is the one probably, right? Somewhere else, because they're going to be hanging out there. So you really need to identify where you're needed, right? And the other one is, who is the person you're going to reach out to, and who's going to be your mentor and sponsor, and who can put your name in room full of opportunity. Now, homework is go ahead and type that down and share in our private group if you're part of it. If you sign up to workshop, you are probably part of it already. You should be there to engage, because that's the immigrant community I'm trying to create for free. This is going to be fantastic tomorrow as well. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about what's the difference between goal and vision. And that's not what you think right now. Let me tell you that, right? And there's an example that I provided in a workbook as well. Come prepare, and I can't wait to start our session to share this in social media, and just make sure you tag me as well and say, what did you learn from today's lessons, right? Especially if you are a newcomer in Canada, immigrant in Canada, if you want my network to see you, because when I engage, your profile gets visibility. I have like over 190,000 followers, right? So you want to take this as a content and put it as a content as well. That's the other strategy, especially if you're into writing field. What did you take away from the sessions, and why should people join in? Dropping the link so people see you as someone who actually is a thought leader. You should not be holding these kind of informations at all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow, and I can't wait.